Hi, my name is Lark. They told me it was just a bruise, then left me limping through a canyon tour for 3 hours. Said I was being dramatic, again. Then they went to brunch while I sat alone in a hotel room, ankle fractured, name erased from the insurance list, replaced by my cousins. They didn't forget me. They planned around me. Now they're calling me the one who destroyed the family. But if all I did was tell the truth, why are they so scared? And why did it take a stranger's video to prove I was ever there at all? I stood there, gripping the strap of my overnight bag, while they all loaded into the van. Marlo was in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, tapping his phone like the rest of us didn't exist. Velda glanced at me once, just long enough to frown and ask, "You're not wearing that, are you?" No hello, no smile. Just critique, like clockwork. I should have known better than to expect anything different. The air was heavy with the kind of silence that comes when people pretend nothing's wrong. And still, I stood there, trying to find a space for myself in a trip that clearly had no room for me. I hoisted the bag into the trunk myself. No one moved to help. Not even a shift of weight. Just eyes locked on screens or away from me. I climbed into the van last. Velda sighed. "You could have been ready 10 minutes ago." Never mind that I'd been standing outside before anyone else. I slid into the seat behind the middle row. It was crammed and hot. I asked quietly if I could switch to the back to sit with Haley. Velda turned around like I'd insulted the Pope. "Can you not start with the drama this early?" Marlo snorted. "Just put her with the bags. She can't complain about legroom if she's already part of the luggage." That wasn't a joke. It was a sentence I'd heard versions of my whole life. By the time we hit the first gas station off I-35, the van smelled like snacks and stale judgment. I got out to stretch and walked gingerly on my right foot. It had been sore since yesterday. I wasn't sure if I'd twisted something, or if it was just the concrete floors from work, but I felt it every time I took a step. I mentioned it once, while Velda browsed the aisle of vitamin water, like it held answers to world peace. "I think I might have strained something in my foot." She didn't look up. "You're always like this. One small thing, and it becomes Shakespeare." She grabbed her drink and walked away. I stood there, alone in the middle of the convenience store, with a dull ache growing in my leg and a sharper one setting into my chest. I didn't say anything else the rest of that stop. Back in the van, I closed my eyes and tried not to think about the way Marlo kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror. Like I was a loaded gun, he didn't trust not to go off. The road stretched out forever. The kind of endless you can only feel in a van full of people who treat you like static. I remembered being 9, twisting my ankle at that birthday party. No adult helped me. Velda rolled her eyes and said, "If you can cry, you can walk." So I walked on a hairline fracture for 3 days. The only ice I got came in my soda. That's when I learned the trick. If you don't cry, they can't call you dramatic. It didn't mean you weren't hurting. It just meant they didn't have a reason to mock you out loud. I stopped crying that year. Not because the pain got better, but because no one ever came when I did. The scenery changed somewhere near the Utah border. The hills outside the window felt unfamiliar and unforgiving. My phone buzzed. Low battery. I reached for my mom's iPad in the side pouch and pulled up the itinerary. My name was listed near the bottom, misspelled. Lara. Not a big mistake, right? Just a typo. But when you're already the last person they packed for, when your snacks didn't make the grocery list, when your name is always an afterthought or a punchline, seeing it wrong again felt like the final punctuation mark on a lifetime of being overlooked. I didn't say anything. I didn't correct it. I just closed the iPad and stared at the road. The van slowed as we turned onto a gravel path leading toward the rental lodge. Marlo muttered something about bad directions, and Velda launched into commentary about how things used to be better planned when Dad was alive. I unbuckled too early, grabbing for my bag in the trunk space behind the last row. I was tired of waiting for someone to notice I existed. I figured I'd just move. The moment I stepped down, my foot caught uneven gravel. Pain shot up my leg like a fire line, and my body gave out before I could say a word. I dropped fast, hard, landing on my hip and elbow, and none of them even turned around when I fell. The gravel bit into my knees as I tried to stand. My left leg could take weight, but the right, something wasn't right. My ankle felt like it had come unhinged from the rest of me, like it was floating and throbbing all at once. I gritted my teeth and pushed myself upright, trying to mask the sound that almost came out of me. No one turned around. Not Marlo. Not Velda. Not even Haley, who was closest. I limped toward them, dragging my bag behind me like it weighed more than I did. Velda glanced back once. "Come on, we're late for check-in," she said, as if I'd been dilly-dallying at the gift shop. Marlo didn't even pause his steps. He was already halfway to the lodge, arguing with the GPS on his phone. Inside, the air conditioning was set way too high for how cold my body already felt. The woman at the front desk smiled and handed over 3 room keys. Velda turned to me and said, "We're all in one unit. You can take the sofa bed." Then she tossed a key at me like she was feeding a dog. I nodded. "Because what else do you do?" Later that morning, we walked out toward the trail for the first tour. The park ranger talked about keeping hydrated and staying on marked paths. I was still limping, but quietly. Every step sent a ripple of pain up my shin, but I told myself to breathe through it. I wasn't going to give them any reason to say I was being dramatic. The canyon was massive. Terracotta cliffs and sharp ledges that made the wind whistle louder than usual. I pulled out my phone, tried to snap a photo near the edge, just to have something that wasn't ugly from this trip. And that's when Marlo walked by and gave me a nudge. "Don't fall," he said, laughing. But I did. My foot twisted beneath me, and the next thing I knew, I was on the ground again, this time harder. My phone flew, my sunglasses cracked, my hands scraped against rock. I cried out, instinct, not intention. But it didn't matter. Velda's voice rang out from above me. "Get up, people are watching." I blinked through the pain, my vision spotty. I looked down at my ankle, which was now starting to swell. Purple blooming under the skin, like a bruise that already knew it was permanent. "I can't walk," I muttered. I looked up at Marlo. "I really think I sprained it." He rolled his eyes. "You always say that when you want to sit something out." Velda walked over, hands on hips. "You're making a scene. Can you just breathe through it?" Haley leaned in and whispered, "Try not to cry. Grandma gets annoyed." And so I stood up, on that broken ankle, for them. The trail was long, more than 2 miles round trip, mostly in direct sun, and the ranger wasn't one for stopping often. Every bump in the path, every slope, felt like it was aimed directly at the nerves in my leg. I bit down so hard on my lip that I tasted metal. No one offered me water. Marlo got 2 bottles handed to him. "He looks flushed," Velda said. I limped behind the group like a stray dog they hadn't meant to bring. At one point, I thought about sitting down and refusing to move. But then I imagined Velda's face. Bored, disappointed, maybe even smug. "Told you she'd flake," she'd say. So I kept going. 3 hours. That's how long it lasted. By the time we circled back toward the parking lot, my shirt was stuck to my back, and my ankle had swollen past the top of my sock. I didn't speak. I didn't trust what would come out. We reached a bench. I collapsed onto it, letting my bag drop. Marlo sat a few feet away, scrolling through photos. Velda walked over, unwrapped a sandwich, and handed it to me. "Eat something," she said. "Maybe that'll stop the dramatics." I looked at the food, then at her. My lips parted, but I couldn't form words. Not because I didn't have them, because I had too many. And I realized they weren't going to help me. Not now. Not later. Not ever. As I tried to stand again, the weight sent a sharp crack through my knee. I caught myself before hitting the ground. No one noticed. No one looked. The bench felt like concrete beneath me, but it was the closest thing to relief I'd had all day. My ankle was screaming, my head throbbing, and I could feel sweat drying into a sticky film across my back. When I tried to stand, my leg buckled again, and still, Not one of them flinched. Eventually, they wandered toward the parking lot, chatting about dinner plans. Marlo tossed the keycard at me like a frisbee. It landed in the dirt next to my bag. "We're heading out to that winery tour. Just rest if you need to. Don't make it a thing." Velda chimed in without stopping. "No room service. It's expensive." Then they were gone. I limped behind them to the hotel room, struggling to balance my weight on the opposite leg. No one offered to carry my bag, ask if I needed ice, or even say goodbye. That was the last time I saw any of them for 11 hours. Inside the room, I collapsed onto the edge of the pull-out couch. I didn't bother unfolding it. I peeled off my sock, slowly, carefully, bracing myself for what I already knew. The moment the fabric passed over my ankle, the pain sharpened into something mean. My skin was tight and purple, puffed up around the joint. There wasn't any ice in the room. No painkillers. I didn't have anything except 2 stale granola bars from my backpack and a half-empty water bottle. I texted Velda, "I think this might be serious." It showed read. Nothing came back. I sat for a while, letting the silence fill every corner. The kind of silence that doesn't just mean alone, but forgotten. I thought about calling my mom. Not because I believed she'd help, but because some part of me wanted to give her one last chance to prove me wrong. She answered after the 3rd ring. Her voice was loud, like she was at a restaurant. "What now?" I tried to keep my tone level. "My ankle's really swollen. I think I need to see someone, maybe the hospital." She sighed like I just told her her steak was overcooked. "I swear, every time we try to have a good trip." Then, sharper, "Rest it off, don't make this bigger than it is." And then, click. That click hit louder than any shout ever could. Because it wasn't just the end of a call, it was the confirmation that she still saw my pain as a nuisance, not a concern. I tried Marlo next. He answered. I could hear people laughing behind him. "You're okay, Lark. You just need to stop spiraling." "I'm not spiraling. I'm in pain. It's turning colors." "You cried when Dad changed the Wi-Fi password," he said, like that was proof of something. "You have a history." Then he hung up too. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. Instead, I plugged in my phone, opened the Notes app, and started writing. Not for them. For me. March 12th, 4:47 p.m. Pain level 810. Swelling present. No support offered. Keycard thrown. Text ignored. Call dismissed. No attempt to assess injury. No medication provided. Left unsupervised. I started a new entry every few hours, documenting everything. When I ate, when I tried to stand, when the throbbing shifted. I took pictures. Angles, timestamps, close-ups. I wasn't sure who I was gathering it for yet, but I knew why. If no one else was going to believe me, I'd build a story they couldn't deny. I sat there for hours. The light in the room shifted from gold to gray. Outside, I could hear other families laughing. Someone knocked at the door down the hall, a voice calling, "Dinner's here," in that cheerful, easy way people have when they're not busy being erased. I opened the camera app, turned it on myself. My face was pale, lips pressed tight. I flipped the camera to my foot, red, swollen, a visual that said more than I ever could with words. I hit record. This is just in case they say it wasn't that bad. After I hit record, I set the phone down on the nightstand. The room was still, the kind of still that doesn't come from peace, but from being completely forgotten. The air conditioner kicked on again. Cold air blew across the back of my neck, and for a second, I felt numb enough to rest. I didn't. Instead, I sat cross-legged on the bed, holding a plastic bag of hotel ice I managed to convince the front desk clerk to give me after I told him I'd twisted something while hiking. I didn't get into details. He didn't ask. He just said, "Rough day?" and handed me the bag with a kind look. That was more compassion than I'd gotten all week. The ice numbed the surface of the skin, but couldn't touch the ache underneath. I rewatched the video I'd just recorded. My voice surprised me. Calm, flat, deliberate. Like a teacher taking attendance. No panic, no drama. Just evidence. Something they couldn't twist later. Then my phone buzzed. A message request. I almost ignored it. Probably spam. But then I saw the name. Sloane Bixby. She wasn't someone I'd call a friend. We went to the same high school, had the same homeroom sophomore year. That was it. But she was the kind of girl who saw everything even when she never said much. Her message read, "I saw your name in a comment on Marlo's post. Just wanted to say, you were always treated like crap by your family. We all saw it. I'm sorry." I stared at it longer than I should have. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. It was strange how something could sting and soothe at the same time. This wasn't sympathy, it was confirmation. Someone else had noticed. Someone else remembered the way Velda used to show up to parent-teacher conferences, acting like she ran the school. The way Marlo would mock me in front of the class, and the teachers would laugh along because, well, siblings tease. And the way I always ended up sitting alone during group projects. I'd spent most of my life thinking I was overreacting. Or worse, making it up. I opened a new note on my phone and titled it, "They Always Knew." Underneath, I began listing moments. Tiny ones, but real. Mr. Carlson pausing when I limped into English class with no excuse note, our neighbor, Mrs. Fields, offering to walk me home when I was 12, and Velda practically slamming the door in her face. The camp counselor, who asked if I was feeling safe at home after I refused to swim with the group. None of them had done anything, but they had seen something. Maybe they thought someone else would step in. Maybe they didn't know what to say. But they knew. I scrolled back up to Sloane's message and typed a reply. "Thank you." That's all I said, and it was enough. After that, I leaned back into the pillows and let my brain wander where it hadn't dared to go in years. I remembered 8th grade, field day. It was hot, and I hadn't eaten breakfast. I passed out during the tug of war. When I came to, the nurse told me my mom had said I was just dramatic, and that I'd probably faked it to get out of the race. That's what she told the principal, too, and I believed her. That day, and so many others like it, I believed that my body was a liar, that my pain was suspect, that being tired or dizzy or scared meant I was trying to manipulate someone. The truth is, I wasn't fragile. I was trained to doubt my own signals. It hit me all at once. The worst part wasn't that they neglected me. It was that they made me question whether I even deserved better. That night, lying there with the hum of the mini-fridge in the corner and the glow of the bedside lamp, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way I used to be. The kind of anger that makes you want to prove your worth. That's the kind that keeps you tied to them, hoping if you shout loud enough, someone will finally hear. But what I felt now was sharper, cleaner. I didn't want them to understand me anymore. I just wanted them to lose the privilege of defining me. I opened the Notes app again and added one more line under "They Always Knew." Me. Now. Then I opened the camera one more time. I held the phone at arm's length. My face was tired. Not broken, just done pretending. I hit record and looked directly at the lens. This is for future me, just in case you ever start to wonder again if it was your fault. Morning came slowly, like it was dragging itself across the floor just to find me. I woke to the pressure in my foot, dull and constant, like a warning that never shut up. I sat up, blinked toward the heavy curtains, and waited to see if anyone had texted. Nothing. I checked again. Still nothing. I sent Velda one more message. "I think I need to see a doctor. My foot looks worse." It showed red almost instantly. But that was it. No reply, no call. Just her signature silence, sharp and polished. I called Marlo. It rang 3 times before it cut to voicemail. I didn't bother trying Haley. She'd pretend she didn't see it or blame the bad Wi-Fi. Either way, it would end in silence. They'd gone out again. Winery tour? Something about natural springs. I remembered Velda mentioning it as she was packing sunscreen the day before. And here I was, ankle swollen, alone in a rental suite I wasn't even supposed to be part of. I was starting to think the whole trip was designed around forgetting I existed. I got up, slowly, and hobbled over to the desk to call the front desk downstairs. I asked if there was a local urgent care or walk-in clinic. The woman on the phone was kind, efficient. "There's a clinic about 2 miles out. Do you have insurance on file with us?" I think so," I said, but I already felt the panic creeping in. I opened my folder from the suitcase. Velda had printed everything and handed it to me in a plastic sleeve back home. "We'll handle everything," she'd said. "Just pack and show up." I flipped through the documents, eyes skimming lines I'd seen before. Lodging confirmation, tour schedule, group insurance. Covered travelers, Velda Boone, Marlo Vex, Haley Vex, Ben Vex. No Lark DeVoe. Not even a misspelling. Not even a note. Just absence. I thanked the woman at the front desk and hung up before I could say anything stupid, like cry, or explain, or beg. Back in the room, I dropped the folder on the bed and stared at it. I didn't have the energy to pace, so I just leaned against the wall and tried to process what I was looking at. This wasn't a slip. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was exclusion dressed up as planning. They'd booked me into rooms, added me to dinners, asked me to pitch in for tickets. But when it came to medical coverage, when it came to protecting me if something actually went wrong, I wasn't part of the package, not even on paper. And that hurt in a way I didn't have a word for. Because forgetting someone is one thing, but pretending they were never supposed to be there at all, that's something else entirely. I thought back to 2 days ago. I'd slipped $20 into Haley's bag before the flight, told her it was for snacks, because I knew Velda wouldn't think to pack anything for the kids. And I remember thinking, this is what family does. But now it felt like I'd been running on a definition that nobody else agreed to. Maybe family wasn't shared blood, or holidays, or group photos. Maybe it was something people opt into, and maybe mine had opted out a long time ago. I pulled out the crutches the front desk had offered me the day before. They were too short, wobbly, clearly meant for emergencies, but I used them anyway, moving slowly around the room while I opened the Notes app on my phone. Under the folder they always knew, I started a new entry. They never planned to. I typed, "Today I found proof that I was never protected. Not as a daughter, not as a traveler, not as anything." It wasn't a mistake. It was a map they drew without me on it. I stood there, staring at the screen, the blue cursor blinking like it was waiting for permission. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't text Velda again. Instead, I opened a browser and typed, "How to report medical neglect across state lines." I started reading. Protocols, phone numbers, form titles. Some were easy, some were complicated, but they were there. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt prepared. Just as I was about to click Submit on a form that asked me to describe the situation, a new email popped up on the top of my screen. Subject line, "Request to verify dependent status for student travel insurance coverage. Haley Vex." I froze, because that's when I realized whose name they'd used, and it wasn't mine. I stared at the subject line for a long time before I opened the email. My thumb hovered, my breathing shallow, not out of panic, but of clarity. They'd used Haley's name, not mine. When it came time to assign coverage, define who mattered, check the boxes that legally said, "This person is one of us," they picked someone else. I was just there to fill the space in the photos. I didn't finish the form. I closed the browser, pushed the laptop aside, and grabbed my phone. This time, I didn't document for them. I didn't cry into the lens, hoping someone would come save me. I sat at the desk, straight-backed, facing the window with light cutting through the blinds like a courtroom spotlight. I opened the voice memo I'd recorded the night before and listened to it once. I sounded scared, careful, like I was asking permission to be hurt. That version of me had done what she could. Now I started a new recording. "This is Lark DeVoe. I am 32 years old. I was left alone in a hotel out of state by my family after sustaining what I now know is a fractured tibia. No one checked on me, no one offered help. They walked out, knowing I was limping, and never returned. My voice didn't shake. My condition has worsened. I'm recording this in case my pain is once again dismissed or reframed as exaggeration. I saved it, exported it, and sent a copy to a private Google Drive folder labeled Truth, No Edits. Then I did what any sensible adult would do when no one is coming. I got myself to urgent care. No theatrics, no audience. I wrapped my ankle with a clean towel and held it in place using a strip of duct tape I found in the hotel's utility drawer. My step was uneven, but steady enough to reach the curb. I opened my ride app and requested the next available driver. ETA, 7 minutes. When the car pulled up, the driver rolled down the window and gave me a long look. "You okay getting in?" I nodded. "I'll manage." She didn't ask anything else until we were halfway there. "You know," she said gently, "I've driven folks to clinics for everything from sunburn to bullet wounds. You're the first person I've seen limping on a foot like that without someone next to you." I glanced at her. Late 40s, gray sweater, clean dashboard. Her name tag said Clarissa, no wedding ring. Her tone wasn't judgment, it was understanding. "I didn't have a choice," I said. She tapped the turn signal. "Maybe not, but I've learned. When people show you where you stand, believe them." We didn't speak for the rest of the ride. But when she parked, she looked at me again and said, "You know you didn't do anything wrong, right?" I gave a small nod. That moment stayed with me longer than the X-ray. Inside the clinic, the front desk asked the routine questions. Name, date of birth, emergency contact. "None," I said. They looked up. "Are your parents or guardians with you?" "No," I said. "I came alone." The receptionist's expression shifted. Just slightly, but enough to signal something registered. A nurse came out to get me before I'd even finished filling the form. In the exam room, I was told to wait. A few minutes later, they wheeled in a portable X-ray machine and positioned my foot carefully. I winced, but I didn't scream. They took 3 images, then stepped out. When the doctor returned, he didn't ask if it hurt. He just showed me the scan. Fractured tibia. Not displaced, but close. Moderate swelling. They'd caught it before it worsened, but he looked at me over the chart like he wanted to ask how I'd even made it this far without treatment. Instead, he said, "This should have been seen yesterday. You're lucky it didn't shift." That word, lucky, landed funny. I nodded anyway. They gave me a boot brace, a prescription for anti-inflammatories, and instructions to elevate and ice. As I filled out the exit paperwork, I overheard voices at the front desk. Low tones, a phone call. One of the nurses said, "Yes, she's alone, minor. Injury untreated for over 24 hours. I didn't need to ask what that meant. I knew. Mandatory reporting. Turns out you don't need to yell. You just need the right system to whisper on your behalf. I left the clinic limping, prescription bag in one hand, and my pride tucked tight under the other arm. The air smelled cleaner than the hotel, like dust and pine and something fresh. Then my phone buzzed. A voicemail. Velda. I didn't answer, but I listened. Her voice was clipped, professional almost. "Don't do something you'll regret just to make a point." And that's when it hit me. They thought I was bluffing. The message ended, and I slipped the phone back into my pocket without replying. I didn't need to respond. Not yet. I already knew what would be waiting for me on the other side of that voicemail. A mix of guilt-wrapped threats and gentle manipulation disguised as motherly concern. So I didn't rush back to the hotel. I sat down on the bench outside the clinic instead. Just me, a plastic bag of medication, a wrapped foot, and air that finally felt like it didn't belong to someone else's rules. I stared out at the sidewalk, watched the shadows of a row of aspens ripple over the concrete, and let my mind go quiet. No plans, no arguments, no responses. Just stillness. I opened my ride app out of habit, hovered over the Request Ride button, then hit cancel. I wasn't ready to return to four walls that reminded me more of a waiting room than a sanctuary. Sometimes you just want the world to slow down, just enough for your breath to catch up to your body. A few minutes passed before I opened the app again and requested a ride. 5 minutes out. Driver, Clarissa. When the car pulled up, it was her. Same calm eyes, same clean car. This time, she didn't speak when I got in. She helped me load the crutches into the trunk, gave me a look that said, "I remember you," and we pulled off in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't press or punish. Halfway back to the hotel, Clarissa finally broke it. "They let you walk on that?" Her voice was low but not cold. I nodded. Not out of agreement, just acknowledgement. She clicked her tongue, not judging, just processing. Someone should be held accountable. I looked out the window. "They're family!" Clarissa didn't miss a beat. "That's not the same thing as safe." I felt that. Deep. Like a key clicking in a lock I didn't know was jammed. We rode the rest of the way in a kind of knowing quiet. Before I got out, she turned slightly and reached into her glove box. She handed me a small laminated card with a name, number, and the words, Family Survivor Network. "They help people like you," she said. "You don't have to be alone just because they left you." That card felt heavier than it should have. Back in the hotel room, the air was stale. The curtains hadn't moved. The thermostat blinked a tired 72 degrees. But something had shifted in me. I didn't sit down. I didn't collapse. I stood, one crutch under my arm, and opened my phone. Went straight to the folder I'd been building. Not evidence anymore. I changed the name to testimony. And beneath it, I added a new line. First person who believed me, Clarissa. Not family, not blood, but real. I breathed. Then I opened the email app and composed a new message to the organization on the card. I didn't make it long. I didn't explain every detail, just enough. Subject, I need to tell the truth, and I want it to count. Message, my name is Lark DeVoe. I was left behind by family while injured in a different state. I'm no longer interested in hoping they'll do the right thing. I'm interested in doing something right for myself. Can someone speak to me about what happens next? I hit send. Not with anger. With clarity. A knock came at the door not long after. I limped over slowly, opened it with care. The hotel manager stood there, shifting politely on his feet. "There's someone downstairs asking about you," he said. "A woman named Velda." Of course. I thanked him, closed the door, and didn't move for a full minute. Because I knew, she wasn't here to check on my leg. The knock had barely faded when I stepped away from the door, my body bracing on instinct like it always had around her. I gave myself 20 seconds, just enough time to square my shoulders and remember who I was now. Then I unlocked the door. The hotel manager stood aside with the same awkward kindness he'd shown when I first checked in. Behind him, Velda appeared like she was walking into a boardroom. Not a hospital, not a hotel, a room she thought she still owned. "You didn't answer your phone," she said, like that explained the last week of silence between us. She didn't look at my leg. She didn't ask if I was in pain. She didn't even sit down gently, just lowered herself into the chair near the dresser like it was her right. I didn't speak first. I didn't offer water. I waited. "We need to talk," she said, crossing one leg over the other. "Before you do something, you can't walk back." I almost laughed. Couldn't walk back? She had no idea how fitting that was. I sat on the edge of the bed, facing her fully. She didn't like that. She preferred when I kept one foot out of the room, like I was always ready to leave and apologize. "Marlowe's job is at risk," she said flatly. "He said you're threatening legal action. Is that true?" I shrugged. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because it was the only gesture I could offer without adding heat to the room. Her face tightened. "Look, Lark, I know this hasn't been perfect, but you've always been a little sensitive. That's not an insult, it's just, you take things hard." You mean seriously, I corrected. She tilted her head. This family's been through a lot. It doesn't help when someone adds fuel. Funny, I said, how the people who ignore your voice are always the first to panic when you finally use it. There was no shouting, no tears, just a pause long enough for her to know this version of me wasn't folding. I reached for my phone, opened the file folder I'd curated for days, and tapped send on the email I'd already addressed to her, just waiting in drafts. I watched her phone buzz in her purse. What's that? She asked. Everything. She opened the notification with the same caution you give a letter from the IRS. As her finger scrolled, I saw her jaw lock. In that folder, photos of my ankle, before and after, screenshots of texts ignored, audio clips of my calls to Marlo and Velda, a copy of the group itinerary, insurance list with my name omitted. The video. In case they call me dramatic. Velda's face didn't contort the way I expected. No outrage, just calculation. That scared me more than yelling would have. This isn't necessary, she said, voice low. No, it's overdue. She set the phone down, folded her hands. You could have come to me. We could have talked. I did, I said, steady. You called me a problem. Now I'm documenting one. She stood. The chair creaked as it scraped back across the laminate floor. She walked toward the window, touched the curtain like she was adjusting something, then turned around. What are you trying to prove? I stared at her, long enough to make her uncomfortable. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just tired of being erased. She didn't respond right away. Her fingers fidgeted with the strap of her purse, then gripped it like a lifeline. You'll regret this, she muttered, like she'd said it before to someone who had. I didn't flinch. No, but you might. She paused at the door, one hand still on the knob. Her lips parted, like she was going to try one last guilt tactic, but then she shut them again and walked out. As the door clicked behind her, I sat in the silence, breathing like it was the first real breath in weeks. Sometimes people tell you not to burn bridges, but what they don't say is that some bridges were already ash. You just finally lit the match they were pretending didn't exist. After Velda left, the room felt different. Not lighter, but stripped bare. Like the pretense had finally packed its bags and left with her. I didn't bother turning on the TV. I just sat at the edge of the bed, my foot elevated, the brace wrapped tight, and stared at the unread message count on my phone. 3, then 4. The 5th was from Marlo. I opened it, not because I expected anything new, but because part of me wanted to see how quickly they'd pivot from control to guilt. No greeting, no punctuation, just, "You're really doing this? You're going to ruin all of us over your personal drama?" And then another line. "You need to stop this before it gets out of hand." I didn't react, not immediately. I took a screenshot and saved it to the folder. Label, Threat Number 1, Emotional Manipulation. Because that's what it was. A statement meant to intimidate, cloaked in family language. I thought back to the first time he'd used that tone. I was 14. We were playing baseball in the backyard, just the cousins and a few neighbors. I wasn't athletic, never had been. But I tried. Marlo had swung too wide and hit me in the ribs. I crumpled, gasping for air, tears already springing to my eyes. He'd looked down at me and said, "Don't ruin the fun again." Later, Velda told me I was too dramatic, too sensitive. "You're fine," she said. "You always make things bigger than they are." They never had to lie. They just made sure the version of me they told the world was easier to dismiss. I stared at Marlo's message again, fingers hovering over the reply button. I typed something, then deleted it. Then started again. But I didn't send it. Instead, I opened the email Clarissa's contact at the legal clinic had provided and drafted a note. Subject: Ongoing intimidation from relatives involved in neglect case. Body: Attached is a message sent by a family member involved in the incident currently under review. I am documenting this for the record, as it aligns with a long-standing pattern of emotional control and verbal dismissal following acts of neglect. Please advise if this should be submitted to CPS or your office directly. I hit send without rereading it. Later that night, I opened a blank document on my laptop and began outlining everything in formal detail. The tour itinerary, the fall, the 3-hour walk, the way no one checked on me, the messages I'd sent that went unanswered, the fact that I'd been left alone in another state with a visible injury. I wrote for over an hour. No breaks, just truth. I ended the statement with one line. I no longer believe my family has my best interest at heart. Typing that didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like finally pulling off the mask I'd been forced to wear since I was old enough to understand that being loved and being tolerated weren't the same thing. Around 10, Haley texted, "Mom says you're going to get Uncle Marlo fired." That was all. No, "How are you?" No, "What happened?" Just a warning, like I was causing damage, and she was the messenger. I didn't respond. Instead, I copied the message, pasted it into a new section of my file, and titled it Collateral Responses. They thought I was burning down the house out of spite, but what they didn't see was that I'd already been standing in the ashes. All I did was point to the smoke. I opened the shared folder I'd created earlier and uploaded the full case file, labeled, dated, and backed up. Then, I attached it to an email addressed to the school district's HR director. Subject: Professional Conduct. Urgent, no body text. Just the file. I watched the green progress bar crawl across the screen. Upload complete. Sent to school district HR mailbox. No drama, no confession, no crying. Just a quiet, final click. Because if they wanted quiet, they should have listened when I whispered. Morning came quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows after something loud has shifted in the room, even if no one was there to hear it. I brewed coffee in the hotel room, mostly for the smell. My stomach didn't want anything, but the smell made things feel normal, adult, functional. Then my inbox pinged. Subject line, RE, Professional Conduct, Urgent. I clicked before I could overthink. The reply was brief. We've received your file. A review has begun. The attached footage is under formal review and has been logged with District Council. That was it. I opened the video one last time. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to watch it without flinching. Marlo's hand pushed my shoulder, my body pitched forward, and I slipped out of frame. No edits, no commentary, just truth in motion. It didn't need a caption. It didn't need an explanation. It didn't even need my name on it. It only needed daylight. I closed the file. Then the voicemail icon blinked. Velda. I put in my earbuds and hit play. Her voice was clipped, professional, like she was practicing damage control. I hope you're happy, she began. You've embarrassed us all. Marlo could lose his job over this nonsense. You've made a private family matter into a public circus. I paused it right there. That was all I needed. I saved the audio, labeled it, Discredit Us, Protect. In my digital notes, I wrote a new line. No concern about the injury, only the exposure. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Haley. No greeting, just 4 screenshots. A forwarded thread from the family group chat, the one I hadn't been invited to. She's always been unhinged. We should have left her out completely. She'll crawl back eventually. Let her enjoy her little rebellion. I didn't cry. I didn't delete. I didn't argue. I forwarded the screenshots to the legal rep handling my case with the school district. No extra message, just data. Then I opened the anonymous reporting portal for the school and started typing. This isn't revenge, I wrote. This is accountability. One should never come at the cost of silence. I attached the footage, the voicemail, the screenshots. I included date stamps, names, locations, every detail, neatly organized, labeled, cross-referenced. I'd learned that truth doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. It just needs to be filed where the right eyes will read it. Once I submitted, I leaned back in the desk chair and stared at the wall. My foot throbbed. The pressure cuff around my ankle pulsed in sync with my heartbeat. I thought of all the ways I'd tried to tell the truth before. Softly, carefully, with disclaimers. I used words like, I could be wrong, or I might be overreacting. And each time, they nodded and dismissed it, like patting a dog on the head for barking at the wrong mailman. But this time, I hadn't asked for permission. And that was the difference. Later, I updated my private log. I kept it like a case file now, one I would have drafted for a client back when I still believed in building things by the book. I logged 6:42 a.m. Email confirmation of receipt from HR, 6:58 a.m. Voicemail from Velda, archived, 7:11 a.m. Haley's screenshots, submitted, 7:26 a.m. Formal submission to reporting portal by 8:15 a.m. My inbox pinged again. Subject: Administrative leave notification, Marlo Vex. The email was short and surgical. Mr. Vex has been placed on immediate administrative leave pending internal review. He has been notified not to return to campus or communicate with students or staff until further notice. I sat there for another minute, just staring at the screen. Not in shock. Not with glee. With confirmation. Not once, through all of it, had anyone asked if I was okay. By early afternoon, the hallway outside my room buzzed with the sound of vacuums and doors clicking shut. I'd just closed my laptop when the hotel phone rang. I let it go. 2 minutes later, my cell buzzed with a call from the front desk. A soft voice said, "There's a call for you here, ma'am. From someone named Henny?" I already knew. I thanked her, slipped on my brace, and walked slowly down to the lobby. The phone at the counter was warm when I picked it up. Aunt Henny's voice came through the line with forced sweetness, like maple syrup poured over cold toast. "Sweetheart," she said, "I just heard from your mom. She's very upset." I didn't answer. "You've created quite a storm," she continued. "I told her I'd call. It's not too late to fix this." My grip on the receiver didn't tighten, but the silence on my end was enough. She shifted her tone, just slightly. "Your uncle has a family to support. Do you really want to go that far? This can still stay within the family. We don't have to drag it into courtrooms or, God forbid, social media." There it was. The warning, wrapped in concern. The performance of peacekeeping. "You shouldn't have sent that file, Lark. You'll regret it when things spiral. People forget. Files don't." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean in. "That's the point." She tried to soften again. "You know your mother. She doesn't always say the right thing, but her heart's in the right place." That was the kind of lie families told themselves when they couldn't explain away the harm. So they repackaged it as love. "They're not asking me to forgive," I said, mostly to myself. "They're asking me not to remember in public." Henny didn't reply. I hung up the phone, nodded to the front desk, and walked back upstairs. Each step up the carpeted stairwell felt heavier than the last, but not because of the brace. It was the weight of history, of stories rewritten by the people who got to tell them first. Inside my room, I opened the laptop again and logged the call. Title: Family using intermediaries to apply pressure. Entry: Call received via front desk, approx. 12:45 p.m. Henny Lang. Language included emotional redirection, implication of financial consequence to Marlo, and statements discouraging public reporting. Tone: conciliatory masking coercion. A few minutes later, another voicemail came in. Velda. This time, her voice was almost calm, so much worse than angry. "You should have kept this between us. Now I don't know how to protect you." I didn't archive that one. I didn't even finish it. I deleted it without saving. She never tried to protect me. Only the version of me she told people about. The one who gets emotional under pressure. The one who likes attention. The one who, somehow, always misremembers. Later that evening, I was eating from a paper container of soup when a new email arrived from the school's legal department. The subject line read, "Statement requested." I clicked it open, hands steady. The message was brief. We are beginning the formal review process. Please confirm your willingness to appear in a hearing and provide your verbal statement. Your presence will help clarify events from your first-hand perspective. You are not required to attend, but your involvement is encouraged. Final date and time to be confirmed. I read the last line again. Please confirm your willingness to appear in a formal review hearing. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I didn't need to think about it. It wasn't about what they'd done anymore. It was about what I was willing to stand for. After replying to the legal department, I closed my laptop and pushed it away like it might bite. There was nothing else to send, no more edits to make. I had done my part, and now the waiting began. Outside the window, the sky had shifted to that slow, golden hour before sunset, when everything looks softer, even what isn't. I leaned back into the chair and told myself to breathe. Just once, just deep enough to feel it. Then my inbox pinged again. Subject: Saw your story. I think this is yours. I almost skipped it, assuming it was spam, but the sender's name stopped me. Emery Glass. Not a name I knew, but the message was short. I was at the Palace site that day. I saw what happened. I had my phone out filming the architecture, and I caught something. I think it's you. I hope it helps. There was a video file attached. I clicked it. The clip was maybe 10 seconds long, but it did more in 10 seconds than all my words had managed in 10 years. It showed me, standing near the steps, adjusting my camera, smiling the way you smile when someone asks you to pose and you don't want to seem difficult. Marlowe appeared from behind, grinning like a boy about to pull a prank. He shoved me, not hard, not violent, but enough. I stumbled forward, my arms flailed, and I disappeared from frame. No one ran to help, no one screamed. In the background, Velda turned her head away. Haley laughed. They didn't think it was serious. They didn't even think it mattered. But someone else had seen it. Someone else had recorded it. And now it was real. I stared at the screen until the video looped. Then I played it again. And again. It didn't make me feel vindicated. It made me feel hollow, like I'd been given a picture of my own bones, clear and undeniable, but deeply unsettling. It's a weird kind of grief, I whispered, watching someone else prove your pain. I didn't send an email reply. I just forwarded the clip straight to the school district, attached it to my ongoing report folder. No commentary, no explanation. The video spoke louder than I ever could. Then I turned off my phone. Not out of exhaustion, but intention. At the hotel desk, I opened my notebook and wrote a single line. This clip came from a stranger. Because strangers see what family refuses to acknowledge. I drew 2 columns on the page. At the top of one I wrote, "Saw it and denied it." At the top of the other, "Didn't see it but believed me anyway." Under the first, I listed names. Velda, Marlowe, Haley, Aunt Henny. Under the second, only one name stood, Clarissa. The next morning, I reopened my inbox. A new message from the legal team. We've reviewed the new footage. Mr. Vex's conduct appears to meet criteria for student endangerment. Legal review underway. Confirmation of your in-person statement is still requested. I didn't hesitate. I typed back, "Yes, I'll speak." Then I opened the video one last time, not for evidence, for closure. I watched myself fall again. Then I whispered, "You caught me, Emery," when they wouldn't. It wasn't justice yet, but it was a beginning. The ride to the hospital was short. I'd arranged it myself, a quiet service car with a driver who didn't talk unless I did. I liked that. No forced small talk, no awkward glances at my wrapped ankle. Just silence that respected my space. When I checked in at the front desk, the clerk smiled, asked if I had an appointment. I gave her my name. Before I could finish spelling it, she interrupted politely. "Your mother is already here, asking for a status update. Would you like us to keep her updated or—" I didn't need time to answer. "You can tell her I'm capable of speaking for myself." The woman nodded. typed something into her screen, and didn't ask again. 10 minutes later, Velda walked in like she had the right to be there. Like none of the things I'd documented, recorded, or endured had changed a thing. Her posture said authority. Her face said damage control. She didn't ask about my leg. She didn't glance at the boot or the crutches leaning against the chair beside me. Instead, she sat down across from me and opened with, "I just came to ask one thing. Who else knows?" Not how I was. Not if I needed anything. Just, who else knows? I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The pause alone did most of the talking. "You've made us look like monsters," she continued. "And now the school district is involved." Her voice was calm but clipped, like a teacher scolding a student in front of a class. Like she was hoping if she stayed even enough, she could control the story. I tilted my head slightly, studying her. The woman who once told me to toughen up when I got hives at summer camp. Who said real pain doesn't announce itself after my first panic attack at 13. And now, here she was, more concerned with the fallout than the fracture. "You're not monsters," I said, my voice steady. "Monsters usually believe what they're doing is wrong. You just believe it never happened." She blinked. Once. Sharp. "I never said you weren't hurt." "You never said I was either." She opened her mouth again, but I beat her to it. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the official case number assigned by the school district, and showed her the screen. "This is real now, not just family drama, not just a misunderstanding." She stared at the screen like it betrayed her, like it was a living thing, baring its teeth. "You asked the wrong question," I said. "You should have asked if I'm okay." The tension in the room was thick. Her fingers twisted the strap of her purse like it was the only thing anchoring her to the floor. Before she could answer, a hospital administrator entered the waiting room. "Ms. DeVoe, we're ready for your intake. Would you like privacy?" I stood, slow but firm. Yes, I would. Velda rose as well, clearly trying to regain composure. "We can talk about this later," she said. I didn't even look at her. "No, we won't." She didn't push back. She didn't argue. She just followed me with her eyes as I turned and followed the staff member down the hall. For years, I'd wanted a moment like this to feel like a victory. But it didn't. It just felt final, like a page turning itself. I didn't hate her. I didn't want revenge. I just didn't want to be rewritten anymore. Back in the consultation room, the nurse checked my vitals while someone typed quietly at a nearby desk. A social worker hovered near the door, clipboard in hand. Then the attending came in and said gently, "You're welcome to speak on record today. Just let us know when you're ready." I nodded, looked them all in the eye, and said, "I'm ready for my official statement. I want everything documented." The room where they brought me for the official intake looked more like a neutral conference space than a medical office. The walls were beige. There was a clock that ticked too loudly, and a stack of clipboards that hadn't been touched in hours. I sat at one end of the rectangular table. Across from me were two administrators, one from the hospital, one from youth services, and a third woman with a laptop open in front of her, ready to transcribe every word I said. No one asked how I was feeling. They didn't coddle. They didn't perform empathy. And strangely, I preferred it that way. What I needed now wasn't sympathy. It was a place to speak where no one was preparing a rebuttal before I finished a sentence. They asked for a timeline, so I gave them one. Starting with the moment we arrived in Utah, I walked them through each beat. The fall, the pain, the refusal to be believed, the walking tour, the hotel, the silence, the text, the Uber, the X-ray. It felt clinical, but not cold. Factual, just facts. No bending for their comfort. No softening edges that had already drawn blood. When I finished, they didn't look shocked. They just nodded, took a few notes, and typed. One of the staff members, the one with glasses and an ID badge that read Case Liaison, cleared her throat. "Thank you. Based on your statement and the documents submitted previously, this qualifies for mandatory reporting. A cross-agency inquiry will begin today. CPS will be notified due to the timeline of events and your dependency status during travel. I nodded. No surprise, no panic. They slid a form across the table. Just your signature to confirm the statement and your understanding of the process. I signed, with both hands steady. This was the first time in my life my voice wasn't being weighed, doubted, or diluted. It was being filed. After the interview, I was led to a smaller consultation room. A legal advocate from the Youth Services Division met me there. She was kind, efficient, and didn't ask for my life story. She simply said, "Your report has already been escalated. You'll likely be contacted by the school district's hearing board, possibly CPS. In some cases, law enforcement may request clarification." She handed me a printout of the materials already shared: file numbers, timestamps, summaries. "This is your record, a courtesy copy for you." I stared at the folder in my lap. It felt like a small shield, one made of paperwork and signatures instead of metal. It wasn't a promise of safety, but it was a form of proof. Sometimes safety doesn't come from protection. Sometimes it comes from receipts. The moment I stepped out of the consultation room, my phone buzzed again. I had returned to the waiting room, limping only slightly now that the swelling had begun to fade under treatment. Subject: Marlo Vex, suspension notice finalized. The email was short and surgical. The school district had completed its internal review and determined that Mr. Vex's behavior was inconsistent with its standards for educator conduct. He had been placed on administrative leave and notified not to return to campus pending the outcome of the disciplinary hearing. I read the message twice. Then I deleted it. Not because it didn't matter, but because it already had. I didn't send it to Velda, or Haley, or anyone. No updates, no screenshots, no breadcrumbs. The silence this time belonged to me. Later that night, I returned to the hotel room to pack. It took less than 10 minutes. Most of my clothes were untouched, my toiletries half used. I moved slowly, not out of sadness, but intention. There wasn't anything left to say. Not to them. I left a single sticky note on the nightstand. Not a threat, not a jab, just truth. I didn't set the fire. I just refused to stay inside the house while it burned. My ride to the airport came 20 minutes early. The lobby was quiet. I didn't look around for anyone on my way out. I climbed into the car, pulled the door shut behind me, and said nothing as we pulled away. But as the hotel disappeared from view, I whispered to myself, "Now I know! Being right isn't the same as being safe, but it's a damn good start." The airport gate was quiet, except for the low shuffle of feet and the occasional crinkle of snack wrappers. I found a seat against the far wall, away from the chargers and the crowd. I wasn't tired, but my body felt like it had been holding its breath for days. I didn't text anyone. Not Haley, not Marlo, not Velda. Instead, I opened my inbox one more time, not to check for messages, but to finish something I'd been drafting for days in my head. The message that would end this story, not with revenge, but with release. I started with the subject line, "This is the last time you'll hear from me." No dramatics, no punctuation for effect, just the finality of it. Then I began to type. "You left me, on the sidewalk, in pain. You watched it happen and told me to keep walking. You called me dramatic. Then you called me dangerous when I documented it. I'm not going to make peace with that. I don't need your version of love. This is the last message I will ever send. Don't reply." That last line, I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't meant to be cold. It was meant to be clear. I signed it with my full name. Not Lark, not sweetheart, not the girl who used to send handmade birthday cards even when hers was forgotten. Just Lark DeVoe. I reread it twice, then hovered my finger over the send button. Then I pressed it. There wasn't a sound when it sent, just the soft ping of the system accepting it, as if something had been lifted off the servers and off my spine all at once. There was no applause, no weightless catharsis, but there was peace. I leaned back in the airport chair, letting the ambient noise blur around me. My foot still ached beneath the brace. My ribs twinged from the flight booking line earlier. But the pain had changed. It had definition now, like something I could work around instead of drown in. Pain doesn't vanish, I thought. But when it has a name, when it's been witnessed, it becomes something else. Something I can manage. Boarding was called a few minutes later. I gathered my things without checking my phone. I didn't need a response. I already had the only one that mattered. Silence. The kind I chose. The line moved slow. I kept to myself. When I reached my row, I tucked into the window seat, pulled my bag under the chair, and leaned into the cool plastic wall. The woman beside me smiled as she sat down, probably in her late 60s. Red scarf, sturdy hands, a voice that carried kindness. "Traveling alone?" she asked casually. I gave a small smile back. "Not exactly," I said. "I brought all my evidence with me." She laughed, not understanding, but she didn't press, and I appreciated that. As the plane taxied toward the runway, I closed my eyes. Behind them, faces flickered. Clarissa, the nurse who saw the swelling before I spoke a word, the legal advocate who didn't flinch when I said family neglect, Emery Glass, who didn't know me at all and yet handed me the truth without strings. They didn't owe me anything, and they still gave me everything. Sometimes it doesn't take a hero to save you. Sometimes it just takes 3 strangers to remind you that you're worth being seen. I felt the plane lift off, and with it, a kind of weight peeled away. Mid-flight, my phone buzzed once. No name, just a preview. "You'll regret cutting your family out. Velda." I didn't even open it. I slid the message to the left and hit delete. Then, I whispered, just to myself, so soft the engines swallowed it whole. "No. You'll regret not being worth keeping." It had been a month, 32 days to be exact. I woke up in my own bed, in my own apartment, without a knock at the door or a voicemail blinking red. No suitcase on the floor, no hotel shampoo bottles lined up like trophies of endurance. Just morning light slanting in through the blinds, and a quiet hum from the fridge in the kitchen. My ankle still ached in the mornings. The kind of pain that reminds you you're still healing, but not broken. I walked slowly to the kitchen. No crutches now, no brace. Just the soft echo of my own steps. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder to explain why I moved the way I did. I poured myself a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. The inbox was empty. For once, that felt like a blessing. It turns out, peace doesn't announce itself. It doesn't text or knock or show up with flowers. It just starts arriving when you stop making space for people who never deserve to stay. Later that day, I opened Instagram out of habit. I hadn't posted anything since the trip. I wasn't avoiding it. I just had nothing to prove anymore. But what I saw made me pause. Velda had posted a photo. The whole family at a brunch table, dressed in pastels, smiling too hard. Marlo was there, arm around Haley, Aunt Henny. Even Ben, who never used to smile with teeth, beamed like he had something to sell. Caption: "Rebuilding stronger. Family is everything." No tag, no mention, no trace of me. A mutual friend had commented, "Looks like the whole crew's back together." Velda replied with a heart emoji. And I closed the app. No screenshot, no message, no reaction. I opened my documents instead. The old folder titled Case Legal. I hovered over it for a second, then renamed it Kept. Because that's what it had become. Not just a record of what happened, but of what I refused to let be erased. That afternoon, I walked 2 blocks to the bookstore cafe around the corner from my apartment. I hadn't done that in weeks. The sun hit my shoulder blades like a nudge from someone saying, "Keep going." I ordered an iced tea, sat by the window, and bought a new journal from the rack up front. One with a navy blue cover and thick, unlined pages. When I opened it, I didn't hesitate. On the first page, I wrote, "I used to explain everything. Now I name it once and let it go." A girl in her 20s sat down at the next table, typing on her laptop. She looked over and asked, "Are you a writer?" I smiled. Not officially, but I file things that matter. She laughed. That's probably more honest than most writers I know. We talked for a bit. Nothing deep, just books, coffee, the way strangers sometimes do when they have no reason to pretend. That night, I stood in front of the mirror in my bathroom, toothbrush in hand. My reflection stared back with the same eyes, but a different weight. Not lighter, just mine. The scar was still there above my ankle, faint now, but visible. And I didn't look away. I still limp. I just don't explain it anymore. I still hurt. But now it's mine. Not something they get to rename or reduce. There were no voicemails, no apologies, no invitations to reconcile. And if they came, I wasn't sure I'd want them. Because some endings come without applause. Just peace. And a woman walking out of the frame. Not because she fell, but because she finally chose where to go.